I don't know why I elected to use a quartz crystal in my second version of the Earthing Life device. When I first devised it, I was patterning it off of my hypothesis of what the structure of the Earth was, which depends on the hollow Earth hypothesis. Yet all the stories I read when I was a kid or young adult about the situation put a sun at the center of the Earth, of sorts, a sun of sorts. It was a little ridiculous sun. So that's probably why I was willing to discredit it and sweep it aside and start with something new. Oh, a crystal. But it doesn't make sense to put a crystal in this. I don't know. Oh, I thought of a quartz crystal because I thought it was something at the center of the sun, something at the center of the hollow Earth that oscillates. And I thought, well, a quartz crystal oscillates, so why not that I put in my circuit? I never thought of a neon bulb. Now, the neon bulb that Clarence uses in his replication of the Barbosa and Leal Captor has a diode on one leg, and you know what I need? I need a neon bulb with a diode on both legs, one on each leg, pointing inwards with its little current arrow pointing inwards toward the self, towards the bulb transcendence, towards the self. Buckminster Fuller, there's multiple directions away from a point, but there's only one direction into it. I love it. Well, you do that I would do that in my circuit situation, my second version, with two neon bulbs, each flanking each other in reverse and hooked in parallel. And that would represent my sun at the center of the circuit. Oh, God. This is getting all too... I'm telling you, life is so much easier when you get older. At least this part. The figuring out part. It's so much harder when you're young. Oh, God. We're so ignorant. I don't know why we're kept so stupid. You just gotta wait till you're old and gray. If you can make it that long. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take out the two capacitor plates that are No. Yes. Because the diodes replace the capacitors, the interleaved capacitors. Ew, I'm not going to have phase lock. What was supposed to be phase lock? Oh, I forget. Oh, shoot. What was phase lock with? Oh, it was a diode. That's right. Huh. Yet it wasn't right to take out the capacitors and replace them with diodes. Well, probably because I didn't know what I was doing. Well, no. Yeah, probably because I didn't know what I was doing. Maybe interleaved capacitors. How do they substitute for a neon bulb? I don't know. Because there's something very special about interleaved capacitors. See, the point of a diode is that you allow something to get through until it reaches a certain threshold, and then you put up your wall. I mean, or your one-way wall. That's what a diode is, and a capacitor just puts up the wall right away all the time. So, if it's weak enough, it'll go through before the diode kicks in. Or, to put it another way, the way I think Aaron Murakami put it, it'll let it through momentarily until it puts up its wall. I think it's both. From what I recall him describing the action of a diode. Because he makes use of a diode in his plasma ignition coil setup. And everybody said it wouldn't work the way you say it will, but it does. Because he understands a diode in correct fashion. I think there was something about... it made it look like he had it backwards or something. I'm going to have to go and review what he was saying about the use of a diode. Because I think that applies here. I think it's very significant because we're using a diode in an extracurricular fashion. And I bought a neon bulb a long time ago, but I didn't know what to do with it. I was working with my other experiments, and I did not get it with a diode attached. It was just a neon bulb all by itself. Oh, because Bedini used them to test for the presence of radiant energy. And he would have a single wire coming that he would ground to the battery case, as I recall. But it was connected to the circuit. I think it was Bedini. I don't think it was Eric Dollard. Well, not to say that Eric Dollard did not make use of a neon bulb, but I think it was a Bedini video. Anywho, so I found it to be very intriguing to put a diode on one leg, but I couldn't imagine what it's for. Now, I can't remember which direction. I think I better go look. The diode is pointing, because I know what I want. Well, it helps to be stupid and forgetful, because then your intuition can kick in and do something even better. It was actually a neon lamp with a resistor. I thought he said in the text it was a diode. I'm going to have to go back to the text and review that. But here I see a photograph with a resistor on one leg. And that changes things. So, which is it? Am I going to need a resistor on both legs or a diode? Well, anyway, that's the website where he got it from, and that's the resistor, 102 kilo ohms, 117 volts AC. Huh. Wow. I don't know. Gosh, I'm going to have to consult with my intuition or my conscience to see what's required of me. But I may just get that and use two of them, like I said, one on each leg. That means I have the resistor on both sides. See, with a diode I would need to do that, but with a resistor I don't. Do I? Oh, no, yeah. If the resistor has to be on a specific side, like facing the earth, for instance, then I need two, because I need the resistor on both sides. Why? Because the body on the earthing bedsheet is the other end of that Tesla patent that had the aerial and the ground and the capacitor in between. And the aerial was collecting radiant energy of some kind. So, in this situation, though, it's a little different, because the body laying on the earthing bedsheet is another source, counterpoised against the earth. And they're both interacting through the single wire connection. So, and the circuit that boosts that and interacts with it. So I actually would need this little doohickey on both sides of the neon bulb. It would make sense. And then the two connected in parallel would smooth themselves out. That's apparently he or somebody called the umbrella capacitor a smoothing capacitor. So that's the technical term for what I thought was an umbrella capacitor. It's a smoothing capacitor. That's also another little tidbit. So I guess I have to get what he used, and it's not a diode, which means I have to get rid of the capacitors, because there'd be no point to have a resistor on the interior with capacitors blocking its view. And that makes sense, because the capacitors in the hollow earth hypothesis represented the airspace between whatever's at the core, or I should say the center of the earth, versus on the other side the shell of the earth. And those capacitors represented that air gap, or that spatial gap. But if that gap is merely a resistor, not a capacitor, then that makes sense. So my ideology was, now, I should just draw it. Why don't I draw it? I'll do another little video. Alright, so it's patterned off of the earth. So here we got the hollow shell of the earth and a sun at the center,
and the sun is the neon bulb, and since I need a resistor representing the airspace between the sun and the inner surface of the Earth, I need two resistors, which means I need two neon bulbs in parallel, one running alongside the other with a resistor leg on opposite sides, effectively speaking. So I could redraw this with two suns, a doubled sun, and that's what I think I'll do. But in the meantime, I'll show you this. And so this is if I had a resistor on both legs, which I could do, I suppose. Just put another resistor, get a matching resistor, and put it on the other leg. And then the coil of wire, one is clockwise and the other is counterclockwise, and they represent the earth mass, the biomass, and the earth, because the iron core is the earth, and the insulated windings represents the biomass on the surface of the earth, both the inside surface and the outside surface. And then the outside lead, one goes to the earthing bed sheet, and the other goes to earth ground. So let me redraw this. So if I had to use a neon bulb with only one resistor on one leg, I would put two of them connected in parallel on the interior of the circuit. And a resistor would be on one side, resistor would be on the other. Well, effectively, it might end up being similar. The resistor would be cut in half, though, wouldn't it? That's right. I'd be cutting the value of the resistor in half, which, in the case of what I'm doing with it, is probably okay, because I've got such low values. All I'm doing is passing, micro amps, microvolt, really teensy-weensy, not even micro, teensy-weensy volts, amps, if that, because I've got the body interacting with the earth, so it's hardly something to worry about. So it might be overrated, the resistor, for this situation, but I wouldn't try to estimate what resistor I should have. It'd be a waste of time, unless it was something really funky that I made myself, made my own resistor out of natural materials. But I can't imagine, so I wouldn't do it. So it'd probably be okay. But that's what it'll be doing, so you couldn't use it for some other situation and think, oh, it'll work. No, I don't think so. You would just get one neon bulb, and if you need the resistor on the other leg as well, you would just match it with you just buy the resistor separately and match it. But this way I don't have to connect it. Actually, it'd be cheaper just to use one and get another resistor, wouldn't it? Oh, that's true. This is kind of wasteful. Yeah, having a double sun doesn't make much sense. Does it? There's no phase lock. They'd be out of phase. That's right. The interleaving capacitors would not be there to save it. I guess it would be. It would. Yeah, it would be better to put a resistor on both sides and just get one neon bulb. Okay, scratch that. So this is the only correct way to do it, really. Okay, whatever. I understand now what the purpose of the resistor is for. It's a fuse, in case there's a surge, because it's coming from ground or it's involving ground. So it's a fuse, because they do the same thing with the connecting wires that run to an earthing appliance. They put they put the same amount, 100,000 kiloohms. So, but in some instances they'll go higher, and they'll go as high as 1 megaohm. So the question is, or the concern is, merely that it be not less than 100 kiloohms. It should be a minimum of 100 kiloohms. So it could be anything higher. It could be 6.6 gigaohms, It could be anything I'd want it to be, but in terms of practical use, I think 1 to 10 megaohms probably. I have a lot of 100 megaohm resistors. Nothing wrong with that. And actually, now that I think of it, nothing wrong with using 6.6 gigaohms. But of course,
That might be a new use for my sleep circuit. Take out the battery and use the 6.6 gigaohms. Oh, I'd have to split it. Well, no, wait a minute. Yeah, no, I'd have to split it. I'd have to divide it to make use of both. Otherwise, I'd have to just wire more resistors. You know, be like 5 gigaohms each to match, whatever. It has to match. Well, the minimum would be, maybe 1 megaohm, and then leave it at that. Yeah. And if it works out, then I can always increase it. Because you always wonder, okay, resistor, you're dealing with the body, what do you use? As much as possible. That's right. A minimum of 100 kiloohms if you're trying to create a fuse with the earth. But when you do Becker's protocol, it's 1 megaohm, that's the minimum, and 10, which is the average that he used more often than not. So you start with 10 megaohms, and you can always go up. So that's it. So you make 10 your minimum. 10 megaohms is the minimum, and then you can always go higher. Oh, wait. But you can't short it out. You're right, because this is not the body. You're trying to protect yourself from any kind of surge that could occur feeding back into the coils that are coming from the neon, because what if it accumulates energy inside itself and then it should choose to release it? You know, become an animal with a mind of its own, an intelligence, a creature. Yeah, become a creature but with a mind of its own. So you would need the resistor on both sides, and they would have to be a minimum of, in this case, I'm making the minimum 10 megaohms. That makes good sense. Okay. Very good sense. So now I know what I'm doing. And why. Most importantly, why? Yeah, when I studied it, yeah, of course. When you study anything, you have to know the why, because then, what if a situation should arise that's not exactly what you were taught? Oh, we weren't told how to deal with this. What? You better be able to think for yourself. You better be at it. Okay, whatever.
Now that I have this new circuit, I can more accurately pose a speculation as to how did Maldek, what was the technique used to destroy Maldek? Inadvertently or voluntarily, willfully, whatever the case may be. Because I know from my study 20 years ago of the golden ratio, at the end of those 3 years, I came to awareness that I was responsible for having set things up, but it didn't happen during my lifetime. And I could never figure, well, how was it done? And if it's the norm and not the exception to live on the interior of planets because you're protected from the cosmic rays, and it's a more regulated environment rather than live on the exterior, which we're doing, then I suppose living on the exterior means we're not going to be control freaks, or if we are, we're not going to get away with it for very long in terms of self-destruction. Because when you're on the inside, the ability to destroy the planet has just been magnified, because all you have to do... See, I thought it was a capacitor. That's the way everybody talks about it. We talk about the capacitance of the upper atmosphere relative to the Earth. But what if it's merely a resistor? I mean, not merely, but what if it... Oh, excuse me, no, on the exterior of the planet it would be a capacitor, but on the interior it may be a resistor. There you go. See? I did not analyze the situation properly. So, if it's a resistor on the inside, because you've got a sun there at the core, at the center, and how hard would it be to create an ionic tunnel between the inner surface of the Earth, or a planet for that matter, and the inner sun? And if you create that, you would get a lightning bolt that would equalize the charges
between the inner sun and the Earth's shell and destroy the planet, because that's one of the factors that's keeping the planet stably in its shape. And you take that factor away, or that function really, you take that function away, and then the geometry of the planet collapses because it doesn't serve a purpose anymore. Because there is capacitance, but as a result of resistance. See, I didn't understand that. So the dielectric is a resistor. And it doesn't have to be, see, a dielectric is a resistor of infinite resistance, but when you're dealing with an atmosphere, you're dealing with a variable resistor. Ah, there we go. A variable resistor, which means you could have infinite resistance, which makes it a capacitor. So there you go. That's the better way to explain it. Inside, outside, doesn't matter. Okay. It's just the risk is inside, though. Because if that variable resistor is reduced sufficiently, then a channel can be created. Well, a breakdown of the dielectric occurs. Yeah. And then you've destroyed the capacitor, which is the planet. So the planet is a capacitor. It's just that's how you destroy it very easily if you're living on the inside. So I'm guessing that's probably how it was done. Why, I don't know. Was I stupid thinking, oh, let's connect to the inner sun directly and get its energy? Charlie said a crazy scientist. That would be crazy. Because you're destroying the hand that feeds you. Now, if the device was meant to modestly get energy from the inner sun, then it could escalate at some point, get out of control, and that's when the fiasco would occur. But it's still crazy because it's too risky. It's not worth it. Oh, we have enough safeguards. No, it's too risky. It's not something you'd want to do. So it's one thing to get energy from the shell that we stand upon. It's another thing to go the extra step and get the energy directly from the inner sun. That would be wrong. You know, now that I think of it, Henry Stevens talked about the swastika of the black sun that the Nazis were worshipping as their power source. They worship power, basically. But Henry Stevens said that the theology behind it was that the black sun is at the center of our galaxy. Well, in reality, we have a sun at the center of the planet. We have one in the center of all of the globular, shaped planets in our solar system, including the sun. And so the mistake is to hook up directly to the core, because then you destroy the capacitance between the core and the shell. So if you strictly speaking take the energy from the Earth shell itself and not from the sun at the center, everything is fine and dandy. The sun will make up the difference, and unless of course, well, no, because the energy, it's just like Don Smith said, the energy we take, we give back. So what we take from the Earth, we'll give back to the Earth, and it ends up with a zero balance, net balance. So that's okay. There's safety there. But if we took it from the sun, it's stupid. It's stupid. And if I was a crazy scientist, that's exactly what I would have done. I would have done something stupid, resulting in the breakup of the planet, which now we have an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. So that's probably what requiring us to finish out our incarnations somewhere else. And so we went to the moon, we blew off the atmosphere, and then we came to the surface of the Earth during the third race of Atlantis. That's the part that Charlie told us. As to the how, he never said. He just said a crazy scientist, and it may not have been in the same storyline, but I pretty much figured out afterwards when I was studying the golden ratio that it's part of the same story, and I put all the pieces together. So now I can see how it's done very simply. So I create a grounding circuit that's based on the structure of the Earth, but that doesn't mean I connect to the center of the planet. No, you create a microcosm in your little circuit of what's going on in the universe, or our little section of the woods, our local habitation, our planet, because it's good enough.
You don't have to. It would be an ego, see? It's not just stupidity. It's a huge... That's what egos are. They're stupid. Somebody with an so-called ego. I mean, that doesn't mean nobody has an ego. It just means that we're all stupid to some degree. Charlie didn't say that. He said we're all insane on at least one topic. It's when we become insane on more than one topic they lock us away. So... insane is the same as stupid. It's really equivalent terms. Yeah, you'd have to be stupid and you'd have to be nuts. Which means you're voluntarily inducing stupidity through your own naivety, through my own naivety. That's right. And yep, that's right. On that note... I just realized my earthing life circuit has been a Barbosa and Leal device all along, for the most part, with none of the main parts missing. The only difference was I'm powering the body instead of a device or appliance. The reason why I say this is I just realized what the winding on my two toroids represent. They represent the secondary, not the primary. That's why... See, I did things backwards. I worked my way backwards. That's what I was doing. I was working my way backwards. So I put on the secondary, but I wound it across the entire thing. Why? Because there is no other coil. And what's the substitute for the primary? A permanent magnet. Well, what you put in is what you get out. So since my primary was a permanent magnet, the format of the energy coming out of it through the secondary powering my body was the magnetic energy of a permanent neomagnet. It's a 4-inch bar magnet, and it's 1 inch square, 4 inches long. So, yeah, I got some really weird, some awesome magnets, and they're all in storage. No, they're not all in storage. One of those bar magnets... or two of them are on pipe versions of this earthing life device. And that of course is version 1, not version 2. I'm dealing strictly now with version 2. But it doesn't I don't have a magnet on version 2. All my magnets are in storage. So I need a neon bulb to replace, and 2 resistors to replace the quartz crystal oscillator, so to speak, the quartz crystal. The double-pointed quartz crystal. Actually, it's only one-pointed. They call it two-pointed, but it's not. Well, nobody filed down the broken end to look like a nice, clean point like the other point is. Because, they break it off, and then it forms a kind of a loosey-goose second point. So it's a double-pointed quartz crystal from Brazil, a very large one. That is replaced by the neon bulb, and then the 2 capacitors that are interleaved, those are replaced by 2 resistors, and I'm going to use 10 mega ohms each instead of 100 kilo ohms each. But I got 2 toroids. Oh no! You know why I wound one clockwise and the other counterclockwise? Because originally I did not use a separate wire. I did not use a separate wire to go to ground to my own independent grounding rod. I was very lazy, and I used the grounding port on my electric outlet, and that caused the AC hum to bleed over into the grounding, into my circuit, from the house neutral, or from the house ground if you prefer to call it that. No, excuse me, from the hot lead to the house grounding lead, which went to my connection. So what I did before I gave up that dependency, I put in 2 coils counterwound in order to counterbalance the AC hum, but then I got off that and went to a thing outside. So you know what? If I'm to do this correctly, I should be winding them. See, but no. He has the primary wound one way, both primaries on both toroids, and the secondary round the other way. But if you only have one,
then you have the primary wound one way and the secondary wound the other way. Well, I split them off because I found it was more efficient to have one toroid wound completely one way and the other toroid wound completely the opposite way. And of course, I don't have a primary. I have a permanent magnet as my source of my input energy. So, in order to satisfy what is inherent or implied is the counter windings, you would have to have your primary counterwound with regard to your secondary, which is what he does, right? But if you don't have a primary, then you have to go back to using a split secondary in which they're counterwound with respect to each other, or else you won't get you won't get neutralization of the lens effect. Maybe that's what I was doing. And I wound them the same number of turns, though, because I had to, because they're both secondaries. So, it's a modification of the basic concept. Obviously, his is more efficient, obviously. Barbosa and Leal and Clarence's replication is more efficient because you're dealing with high-cost items, appliances that use a lot of energy. I'm using the body, and so I've literally adapted that concept to the body. And I came up with it 2 years ago, which I believe is a year after Barbosa and Leal got their patent, or no, they came out earlier than that. I think it was 2010. That's right. They've been at it a while. No, when Clarence started posting, I think it was 2013 on Over Unity Forum, and then it was, was it 2015 on Energetic Forum? I don't know. Anywho, it's not important. So that's the interesting correlations, which is great. It shows I'm on the right track. So not only do I need to get a neon bulb and two resistors to swap out the crystal and the two interleaved capacitors, but I have to go into storage and get a magnet because I found it really boosts. Yeah, because that's the input. See, I was assuming my body was the input, and it's true. It's true, but it's like very minor. But the magnet is huge. So actually, it's not like Barbosa and Leal. Because if it were, the input power would be minor by comparison to the output power, but that's not the case in my setup. The permanent magnet is overwhelming the body with regard to what is it contributing to the circuitry. So it's not the same. Yet it looks like it's the same, but it's not the same. And the easiest way is to simply look at the behavior of the thing. More in, less out. Well, that's not over unity. I wasn't trying to do over unity. I was trying to make an amplification of my dialogue with the earth when I ground my body to the earth. So, and that's what I fulfilled with the second version as well as the first version. There. I gotta use two hands to steady this. It's the young people who have a steady grip. Okay, well, over unity, maybe it'll come later, maybe not. But it certainly is a better circuit. And maybe the neon bulb will have something to do with it. Maybe the neon bulb will serve as a kind of partialization of capacitance. No, not that. See, when I look at the Barbosa and Leal, it's the iron core that's the portal of free energy, but it may not be. It may be the neon bulb. It may manifest in the coming out of the iron core, iron transformer core. But that doesn't kickstart it. That doesn't initiate it. I think it's the neon bulb. Because that's the heart of the creature. That's the divine spark of the creature. That's the spark of the creature. We're creating a creature, a living creature, an intelligent life form. And in order to be over unity, it would have to be enlightened, wouldn't it? truly over unity circuitry is enlightened circuitry, and that's what a yogic body, facilitating its longevity by feeding off of light rather than calories, can live as long as it wants to. And that's what an over unity device would do, provided it doesn't break down. But the circuitry itself would go on forever if the circuitry, the energy passing through the circuitry goes on forever because it's self-fulfilling, self-supporting, provided the circuitry withstands the juice going through it, the wear and tear. It would have to be self-healing, obviously, the whole circuitry. But the idea is that the dynamic element of the circuit, the on portion, the energy, is self-sustaining. Because of that fact that it's enlightened, it's over unity, and the core of it is that neon bulb. So I am coming up with a different circuit. But it might become over unity, but it's not for devices. So, according to these over unity devices, what happens is the load regulates the supply. So when the load goes up, the supply goes up to match. And that's why if you don't control the load, the circuit can burn itself up. If the load is allowed to escalate to infinity, the supply will do likewise, and the whole circuit will burn itself to smithereens. I guess that's how a yogi, living on light rather than calories, can cause itself to auto-disintegrate or vaporize, is simply no longer put a damper on the energy consumed. Just go for the max. And when you think about it, isn't that orgasm? I want to experience the maximum amount of power running through the system that the system can tolerate before breakdown. And you only get one chance. It breaks down, and that's Mahasamadhi, and then you're gone. Oh, what an end to a lifespan! It gives real meaning to Maha portion of Samadhi. Oh my God. Well, if you're living on light, then you should be able to vaporize the body. And that's what would happen. That's what you'd experience. So you take the body out. And that's why we don't find anything other than Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal relics from the past. Because those were the, what's a nice way to put it? The imbeciles. They were not human. They may have just been either animalized humanoids who lacked a human soul, because those are prior yugas. That's the I can see why the creationists have the better viewpoint. The problem is they left out deterioration. Well, no, they talk about it several times. They talk about the fall of Eden, and they talk about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they talk about what's the other one? Babel, the Tower of Babel. So that's three different, and there's 2 falls of Eden. So that's 4 deteriorations of humanity. No, and then we have Noah and the ark. That's 5. So we've got 5 deteriorations that they talk about. More than enough to get the idea across that we're made perfect. We're not that way now. We've slowly deteriorated into our current condition, which is pretty sloppy. But the Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal is something else that's not even relevant to ourselves. And this is the lie of science. No, science doesn't lie. It's politics that lies. Because politics has an agenda. It's called public policy, and that's to keep the masses dumb. Which is kind of interesting, because we're in the Kali Yuga. We're already dumb, so I don't know why they're trying hard to make us dumber. But hey, it's the Kali Yuga. Why not go for stupidity, maximum stupidity, on a social scale, on a collective scale, worldwide stupidity? Why not? Yet, it's funny because we have all this technological development.
How long can they keep up this business of putting a damper on progress? That's all they're doing. Sooner or later we're going to get smart enough to wise up and figure out their lies. Everyone will, and go, hey, they're lying. And it'll be a worldwide recognition. Whether or not the population will all be here, I don't know. Maybe the predominant population can't go there, refuses to go there, doesn't want to go there, would prefer to remain asleep. So, progress may leave them behind. They may not fit in 100 years from now or 200 years from now. They may not be around. That kind of mentality may not be around because it's not suitable to go on like that. So either everybody gets dragged along, or some or many or whatever gets left behind. Because not all are going to try to be out front. Some will be dragged, dragged, kicking and screaming because they don't want to see this world as anything other than a static concept. Yet still get benefits. No, we want more benefits. As if you get things for free? Since when? Well, we don't teach karma, do we? We don't teach karma. We think everything's a free lunch. So instead what we do is we teach a lesser form of karma. And a contrived form in which our world becomes more heavily regulated day by day, and it takes a battery of lawyers to make sense of it all, not just a single one. And if you work hard and follow all the rules, then you'll be fine, and you'll be able to be swept along with the growth of technology. But I don't think lawyers are going to be good enough because they have their own language. We don't even understand what they're saying all the time. And school ain't going to be good enough because, and this is the kicker. Charlie said the pace is going to accelerate. And it'll be so fast that prior knowledge will never be good enough to survive. He said you will have to use intuition to survive because the pace will accelerate. Pace of change. So you see, lawyers and education and the popular media won't be good enough. Everybody will be on their own. And if they don't have intuition to carry them through, they will be left behind. That's right. So it's not a punishment. It's just whether or not you can handle it. Whether or not we all can handle it, really. And it requires flexibility, too, not just intuition. Intuition implies receptivity and sensitivity, but there is also the need for flexibility and inner strength. Ooh, all kinds of things. And these are virtues, These are considered virtues. It has nothing to do with intellect and IQ or expertise. Those things are nice. But in a pinch, they're not good enough. So it's going to be very interesting over the course of maybe the next 50 years, It may not even take that long to really start to kick into acceleration gear. And then we'll see what we will see. So what? The problems will solve themselves. The problems we have still currently in today's world, they'll solve themselves because the earth is going to take charge. Say, well, guys, I was waiting for you to grow up, and you didn't, so I'm going to do the growing up for you, and I'm going to accelerate the pace just to make sure that you don't put a stop to it. This is how she dominates us. Hey, all you have to do is go out and surf, and or anything similar, and you find out that you can never be the ruler of nature. And this is what Genesis teaches us. Genesis in the Old Testament says that man is meant to dominate nature, and that's a bunch of bullcrap. They've obviously never... They wrote the Bible before surfing, before the Hawaiians gave us, the Polynesians living on Hawaii gave us surfing. And then you learn that, hey, you think you can manage this wave? Just wait till there'll be a wave not too far behind it. And you're going to take one look at it and say, I think I'm paddling in now and taking a break. Or give up my board and dive and go down deep and out. Go out
to sea and dive straight down and hope you can hold your breath long enough for the wave to go over you and the backlash to go past you, and hopefully they don't come in the form of sets in which you'll probably drown trying to hold your breath long enough. I mean, the idea is that you can't handle all these things that nature throws at you. In a controlled, artificially man-made environment, we think everything's fine. We can handle it. We got everything under control. But what if nature doesn't see it the same way? Oh, yeah, we don't have to worry. It'll solve itself. If we can't solve the Earth's problems that we make, then the Earth will take care of it for us. And heaven help us. Oh boy. All right, enough said.